Antonio Conte has just announced he is leaving Napoli, and we've had this podcast planned for a fair few months now. Is actually comparing his title winning side for Chelsea and his title winning side for Juventus and combining them into an 11. Antonio Conte, probably one of the best managers in the world at coming in, win a league and then leaving. And he's probably one of the best to ever do it. In Italy, in England, wherever he's been. He's just a phenomenal manager. Connor, what has he won at Chelsea and Juventus?
So in his time at Juventus, he won 3 Serie A titles on the bounce. So he won the 2011-2012, 12-13 and the 13-14 Serie A, whilst also winning the Supercoppa as well in the 2011-12 and the 2012-2013 season there. So 5 titles he won at Juventus in his time there. And then at Chelsea, he came in, he won the Premier League in his first season in the 2016-2017, and then won the FA Cup the year after in the 17-18 season before he then departed the club.
So he's a serial winner. What do you remember about Antonio Conte's teams?
I remember them being well disciplined, especially with the back three, back five that they played, obviously with Juventus and obviously at Chelsea as well. Very defensively sound, aggressive, but also brilliant with flair up front as well. I mean, I remember players like, I'm sure we'll get onto them, I'll mention a couple now, like Cesc Fabregas, obviously in that Chelsea side. I remember Andre Schürrle as well in that Chelsea side. And then you've got the wing back system as well, which probably wasn't seen as much until Conte came in, but especially with the achievements that he got with it, laid a blueprint and a foundation for the likes of Thomas Tuchel to obviously go back into Chelsea afterwards with the back three and shown in the league that it can work as long as you have the players and the manager that could do it properly.
Antonio Conte. Con, what do you remember from him at Chelsea?
I loved him. I loved his passion and his fire and just the way he was. He's certainly somebody, he's not everybody's cup of tea. He's not somebody that everybody is going to warm to. But I think I remember his first game in charge, West Ham at home, Monday night game, first game of the season. And it was 1-1 late on in the game, and Diego Costa gets the ball on the edge of the box, takes a touch and drills it into the bottom corner. Costa goes mad. The supporters are going crazy. Conte sprinting up the touchline. He's throwing himself into the crowd. He's hugging the supporters. Straight away, he built that relationship and he just got it. He got what it was to be Chelsea, and he delivered. He won the Premier League in his first year. He won an FA Cup in his second year, and another manager that fell victim really to Abramovich's ever-present wielding axe on managers. But I really liked him, really rated him. He's had spells at other clubs where he's not been as successful, but I think you have to look at what the setup there is. That he was never going to be successful at Tottenham.
No,
nobody is, because
it's still bizarre he even went there. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, he turned it down originally, didn't he? He turned it down, so that's why they went and appointed Nuno. And then when they realised that actually he was interested, they sacked Nuno despite the fact he'd started quite well there.
I just think
you don't picture him as a Spurs manager, do you?
No, that's been the story of Spurs over recent years, though, isn't it? I mean, the same happened with De Zerbi this year. I mean, they went in for him. He didn't want to go, and they increased their pay packet, I'd imagine. Probably similar to what happened with Antonio Conte, and Spurs are probably just offering silly money that he couldn't turn down. I think ultimately that's what it was.
So we're comparing his 2 seasons, the 2016-17 season and Juventus' 2013-2014 season, and their squads. So we can combine them. The goalkeeper, first of all, incredibly tough position to compare. And we're looking at their time under Conte in particular. The goalkeeper position, Thibaut Courtois or Gianluigi Buffon?
Straight off the bat, for me, I'm going with Gianluigi Buffon. Just because I just think that out of the 2 goalkeepers at the times under Antonio Conte, I do think Gianluigi Buffon was better. I always remember Thibaut Courtois more of a Jose Mourinho goalkeeper than a Antonio Conte goalkeeper. I'm not quite sure why. I just remember Courtois having a better season under Jose than under Conte. Not saying he had a bad season under Conte. He didn't, but I just think longevity wise, with obviously Conte spending more time with Buffon than he did with Courtois, and just the level of goalkeeper that Buffon was, I'm going to go with Buffon. But it is a tough position to pick.
I'm going with Buffon as well. Con, what do you think?
Yeah, I would go with Buffon as well, but Courtois was phenomenal. I mean, when he came in, we'd loaned him out originally. He had a couple of years at Atletico Madrid where he did really well, and then came in and took the number one spot off Petr Cech. I think he improved massively in the time under both Mourinho and under Conte, which obviously got him his move then to Real Madrid. I really rated him as a goalkeeper. I didn't have any worries about, was he going to make an error, because he very, very rarely did. But Buffon, with his longevity and just his very, very calm presence in goal for Juventus, he and that back line in front of him would have been a massive part. And the fact that they won 3 Serie A's on the bounce, and this 13-14 season was the third one of that. So, yeah, Buffon gets in for me.
Right wing back. Now, as we both know, Antonio Conte loves a wing back. Less so seen in Napoli most recently. They were predominantly more of a back four. But he's, we would say when I think about Antonio Conte, I'm thinking about 3 at the back. I'm thinking about that Italian style. So Victor Moses or Stefan Lichtsteiner?
For me, it's an actually a difficult one, just because I feel like both players are, especially under their times under Conte and in the back 3/back 5 playing wing back. I think they had very similar seasons, but I'm actually going to give it to Victor Moses over
I'm in
Stefan
agreement
Lichtsteiner.
there. I didn't think Victor Moses would ever kick a ball properly in a title-winning side. I didn't think that a converted player. I know, Con, you love Victor Moses. Why?
He was just absolutely and completely reborn under Conte in that right wing back role. A player who had played at Wigan and looked as if he could be a good player, that got the move then to Chelsea, and never really, like, when you look at the attacking talent we had at that time, he was never going to be able to cement a place in that forward line. He just looked like he was going to be a bit part player that would be another one that's loaned out all the time. So for him to then come in and be trusted with that right wing back role and to do it as well as he did,
Such a high level.
Lots of energy, loved getting forward, but also was doing the hard graft in terms of getting back and helping defensively as well. And like I say, just completely rejuvenated as a player under Conte. So yeah, I'd pick Victor Moses there too.
Left wing back. Now, left wing back, I think it's been quite tough. Marcus Alonso or Kawado Asamoah?
Again, tough, but in the similar reasons as to why Victor Moses and Lichtsteiner was tough. But I'm actually going to give it to Marcus Alonso.
I agree.
Marcus Alonso for me was a very, very solid 8 out of 10 left wing back. Con, obviously, I know that you would have watched him a lot more than me and Cash would have done. But I thought he was brilliant playing left wing back for Chelsea in that system. Obviously, he has an unbelievable left foot, brilliant from set pieces, scored some amazing free kick goals. Could defend, could attack, and was the perfect balance for Victor Moses on the other side. Having Marcos Alonso on the left-hand side was the perfect balance, I think. Granted, Asamoah was a very good fullback, very good wing-back even, but I just think that at his time under Conte at Chelsea, I thought Marcos Alonso was better, so that's why I've gone for Marcos Alonso.
Again, another player that I never thought would ever win a Premier League title. And actually extended his career massively because he's able to stay at the top level of his game. He went on to play for Barcelona, which is just crazy. It just seen as this player who was perfect for a wing-back role, Con.
Yeah, much more suited to being a wing-back than a full-back. There was certainly questions and concerns over his ability to defend effectively, but in that wing-back role where there is less pressure on you to defend, to still get back and track and be a part of the defensive shape, but to do maybe less defending and get forward more. He was a player that you knew was going to be there backing up Eden Hazard on that left-hand side, getting around him to put balls into the box or scoring himself. And he, like Ad said, scored some fantastic goals from set pieces, but also from his play, moving up the pitch with the ball, receiving it in areas around the box, getting into the box and driving it across goal. And again, a really, really fun player to watch in that back 3 system, playing as a wing back.
I think when we come to the centre backs, this is going to be really difficult. I think rather than comparing position for position, I think we just go for all three of them, what our combination would be. So the back three is unbelievable. These three players for Juventus: Barzagli, Bonucci, and Chiellini. That's your back three for Juventus. Probably you probably argue Juventus is probably greatest ever back three.
Yeah.
I think unbelievable. And then you got Chelsea's back three, equally as effective. I wouldn't say like as good as names on paper, but so effective. Cesar Azpilicueta on the right side centre half, David Luiz in the centre, and then Gary Cahill on the left side as centre back. So, what is your combination, Con? What have you gone with there?
So for me, it would be Azpilicueta, Bonucci, and Chiellini.
I've got the same combination. I went for Azpilicueta, Bonucci, and Chiellini.
I must say that like Azpilicueta, I thought he was unbelievable. You talk about right-sided centre halves. I thought he was up there with the very, very best. I think just as a player all round, he was elite. But at the right side centre half, he just looked so comfortable because he wasn't the most mobile to get on the right wing back, but he could do a job there. He did do a job there a few times, but playing that right side centre back where his ability to defend was so underrated. Defending at the back post was just unreal. He's really good with the ball. But Bonucci and Chiellini. But what I must say, David Luiz, I think that season was incredible.
Yep.
Very, very good. And I think massively underrated. But I think, Bonucci and Chiellini, just absolute brick walls at the back there. So I go for exactly the same combination. So that is Cesar Azpilicueta, Bonucci, and Chiellini.
But then again, you flip it on its head. You pick the players that we haven't gone for. So say you go for Barzagli, David Luiz, and Gary Cahill. Again, it's a very solid back three.
Yeah, very solid.
Obviously, probably not as solid as obviously Azpilicueta, Chiellini, and Bonucci. But you wouldn't turn down Barzagli, David Luiz, and Gary Cahill at that time, would you? You just wouldn't.
So the two holding midfielder spots. Now it depends whether we go for a three in midfield and a two up top, or we go for Antonio's in Chelsea, two in midfield and three up top. So what do you want to go with, Con? You can decide this one. Three in midfield, two up top, or two in midfield and three up top.
I'd go two in midfield and three up top.
Okay, so we go for the Chelsea style. So if we go for the Chelsea style, then we've got 5 players to contend with. 2 from Chelsea, which is N'Golo Kante and Nemanja Matic. And then the 3 from Juventus is Andrea Pirlo, Paul Pogba, and Arturo Vidal. So who are the 2 players going in there?
This is tough. There's a lot of talent in that midfield for both sides.
For both Juventus and for Chelsea at the time they played as well.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. However, a special honourable mention to Paul Pogba, one of my favourite footballers of all time. Just his ability to be so press resistant, to get up and down. Especially in that Juventus side, he was unbelievable. There was the reason why Man United
scored a lot of goals, didn't he, as well?
Scored a lot of goals. A reason why Man United paid the big money for him to come back to United after his time at Juventus. However, I'm not sure if you boys are the same. I can't steer clear from a midfield two of N'Golo Kante and Andre Pirlo. I can't. However good, Nemanja Matic was for Chelsea and he was solid. Again, another reason why Man United signed him. Arturo Vidal, played for big club, played for massive clubs, played for Juventus, obviously, played for Bayern Munich, played for Barcelona. But just as a balance, I don't think you can go anywhere other than Andre Pirlo and N'Golo Kante.
I'm in full agreement. Kante and Pirlo for me. Nemanja Matic was phenomenal in that season for Chelsea, but he would often rotate as well with Fabregas. Fabregas would sometimes play in there as well. Pogba, as you say, fantastic, brilliant at Juventus. But Pirlo was just effortless. He just oozed class. His ability to find a pass and his link-up play, which would then allow Kante to be that engine in midfield, covering all that ground whilst Pirlo's there just knocking balls around past him. Kante and Pirlo.
Look, I'll agree, but I do think it's very harsh on Vidal. I do think it's very harsh. I think Paul Pogba in that Juventus shirt, there's arguably no one better going forward, breaking the box, scoring the goals, linking the play. But Andrea Pirlo speaks for himself. The man oozes class. There's not been a player like him, has there? Probably could argue like Tony Kroos is very similar to him, but not a player of the same ilk of Andrea Pirlo.
He oozes aura, doesn't he, Andrea Pirlo? The long hair, in the Italian league, he just oozes aura and confidence.
He is Italy. He is Italy in a nutshell.
Yeah.
That laid back lifestyle, that chilled out lifestyle.
Yeah.
I think he's right. So then you got your front three. So we've gone for a Chelsea system. Now this is interesting where these fit in, and maybe we could add Paul Pogba back into the mix, maybe as playing potentially as a right-sided winger, maybe because I think he could definitely play there, and has played there. Yeah, he played on the left, didn't he, for Juventus? So he could probably play on that left wing. But I think there's only one name going there.
Yeah.
Spoiler. So the three attackers. We'll go to the wingers first. So the right wing, Pedro. Well, basically it's Pedro or Pedro. There's no one else really to go in from that Juventus side. So let's just speak about the attackers. So Pedro, Eden Hazard, Diego Costa for Chelsea, and you've got Carlos Tevez and Fernando Llorente. Fernando Llorente, I think, a brilliant player. Again, play on the left a lot. The wide target man. Not many have been seen since that particular inauguration. That's why Paul Pogba played there as well. I think Carlos Tevez could be in there on the right somewhere. I take Carlos Tevez over Pedro any day of the week. Eden Hazard for me is an absolute must on that left, and Diego Costa leading the line up front. So my three would be Carlos Tevez on the right, Eden Hazard on the left, and Diego Costa up front. What would yours be, Con?
I'd have Hazard, I'd have Costa, but I'd go with Pedro on the right. Pedro was magic, absolutely magical to watch. So nimble with his footwork, so quick, could go on his right or his left. He could turn you on, come in on the inside, he'd go on the outside, created so much, bundles of energy. Like, he was just so good to watch at Chelsea. I absolutely loved watching him. So I'd go, and I'm maybe slightly biased, but I'd go with the Chelsea front three now of Pedro, Costa and Hazard.
Obviously Eden Hazard's a no-brainer on the left wing. That's not even up for debate. Diego Costa the same as well, I think, especially that time in that Chelsea season under Antonio Conte was just an animal up front, wasn't he? He was just unbelievable, and you wouldn't want to play against him for not necessarily the same reasons you wouldn't want to play against Eden Hazard. You just wouldn't want to play against Diego Costa because he was nasty. And we'd rough you about, and then he'd get under your skin, and he'd score a lot of goals, and he'd let you know about it. And you really miss them sort of forwards in today's game, especially the likes of Diego Costa. However, I'm actually going to be in agreement with Con. I think I'm going to go with Pedro over Carlos Tevez. Now, Carlos Tevez, unbelievable footballer, unbelievable for Juventus. However, I'm not a massive fan of having to shoehorn him out on the right wing. Now, I get it, he could play anywhere across the front, Carlos Tevez, but I think if you're going for a full balanced side in terms of what you'd want from the back three and from the, your two forwards and your three forwards even, I think you'd want more of an out-and-out winger, and I'd go with Pedro. And that is tough because I love Carlos Tevez, even though
I just think
though he is a Judas.
Bobbing down the right, Carlos Tevez just in that pocket. Carlos Tevez that season scored 19 goals in the Serie A. Diego Costa for the season that we're speaking about, he scored 20 times for Chelsea. If that's 40 goals alone, that's not including Eden Hazard. So you put Eden Hazard in there, and Eden Hazard's stats, and we're talking about the 2016-17, aren't we?
Yeah.
Well,
so another 16 goals.
In a perfect world, if we're having someone in as an inside right forward, I'd have Paul Pogba over the two of them.
No, I wouldn't have Paul Pogba over Carlos Tevez.
I would, just for his ability just to get up and down and his creativity and his he was unbelievable for Juventus. I don't think a lot of people understand how good Paul Pogba was for Juventus. I'm not saying Carlos Tevez wasn't, but I feel like he had better years at Man United and Man City, obviously he is a Judas, so that's probably why he's not going in my team.
Yeah, but is that? Yeah, but I can't lead into the bias here. He is a fantastic footballer and was unbelievable.
100% an
And him on that
unbelievable
right
footballer.
pocket would be amazing.
Yeah,
His
but we could
link-up
say
play with
that.
Acosta.
We
Oh
could
my
say
God.
that. We could say that about all of the players. This is why this one's been slightly difficult to do, because especially in the forward line, I mean, you could have them anywhere, couldn't you? It wouldn't really make a difference who you had up there. They'd all be unbelievable.
I
They'd
don't
all
think
score a bucket
Pedro.
full of goals.
Yeah, Pedro good, but no, I'm not having no Carlos Tevez in that team, because you're not having Carlos Tevez over Diego Costa. I get that, and you're not having Eden Hazard coming out of that team. So there's one space for him.
Well, the more we continue this debate, the more you're going to change my mind, because I just keep thinking about Carlos Tevez now and how unbelievable he was. So it's up to you whether you want to end the
But
pod
Paul
or whether you
Pogba,
want to.
I get him, and unbelievable, but it'd have him more on the left side, because that's where he played, didn't he? The left side.
I mean, I
Dal
have
on
him
the
on the
right
left and
side.
I have him on the left and put Eden Hazard on the right if you want.
No, he wouldn't be as effective, was he?
No, obviously not. But just
Connor,
go for
decide.
a box.
If you want to go Pedro, mate, you go Pedro.
I mean, I don't think we're shoehorning anywhere else. And I agree with that. I wouldn't shoehorn Carlos Tevez out onto the right-hand side.
Okay.
No, I'm going to stick with my original decision, even though I do love Carlos Tevez. It's a bit too much of a shoehorn. If we're not shoehorning Eden Hazard over to the right to fit Paul Pogba, and we can't shoehorn Carlos Tevez in over Pedro, so I'm going to stick with Pedro.
So that is our combined 11. So Con, reel it off.
So it's Gianluigi Buffon in goal. It's a back three of Cesar Azpilicueta, Leonardo Bonucci, and Giorgio Chiellini as your back three. Then you've got Victor Moses as your right wing back and Marcos Alonso as your left wing back, with N'Golo Kante and Andrea Pirlo as your two midfielders. Pedro on the right hand side, Eden Hazard on the left, and Diego Costa up front.
That is a solid
side. Do you think that team would win a Champions League?
I mean, if you had a bench of all the players that we haven't included, then yeah, probably. You know, if you had players like Paul Pogba and Nemanja Matic, you know, them sort of players on your bench, you think with that squad, yeah, I probably think they would win it.
I don't know whether that 11 wins a Champions League. I think it wins you a league title. I don't know whether it wins you a Champions League.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it does win you a. Yeah, not
I
sure.
mean,
Not sure, but it's all hypothetical, isn't it?
4 league titles between the two teams, isn't there, and 3 domestic cups. So they're a good they're a good side domestically, but in Europe, I don't know.
Like I said, I think you have to utilise that bench. I think definitely, like you said, Ad.
Definitely.
Right, that is our combined 11s, and from this point forward now, we're just focusing on the World Cup. So tune in next time to listen to more World Cup content. Take care.